From the nation's capital, this is the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast with your host, Rob Snowhite.
This is the 285th episode of my Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. My name is Rob Snowhite, and this may be the last time we talk to Art Noglak about flies. This iteration is all about nymphs. And sorry to tell you this, but your nymph is the least important part of your fly fishing day. We'll discuss favorite patterns, materials for tying them, and finish off with how to fish them. But first, we're going to check in with Luke and Dan on their Fish All 50 road trip. You can follow them through FishAll50 hashtag on social media. Again, this podcast is brought to you by Solo Stove. What is a Solo Stove? Well, besides just the most efficient fire pit you're ever going to use, they look like a aluminum metal cylinder, anywhere from a coffee can size to trash can size. And what you do is you put your wood in there and you light it, and the oxygen gets sucked in those bottom holes, and it circulates through, and it makes a virtually smokeless fire pit once it gets going. There really are not embers that are going to land on you and burn your clothes. There may be a few, but nothing like your old traditional fire pit. It's going to be virtually smokeless once it gets going, and it puts off an incredible amount of heat. You can put your hand right up to the side and feel how cool it is outside of the actual cylinder. But if you touch it, you're going to burn your fingers off. It is that hot. If you have any questions about Solo Stoves, reach out to me. I'll answer them. Please visit my links in my website and social media for more information about Solo Stoves, because every purchase made through my links helps support my small business. Thank you very much for listening. You want to do a little check-in on everything?
Yeah, sounds good.
So we've got Luke.
Yes, I'm here. Daniel's here too.
All right. Where are you guys at the moment?
We are in a Walmart near the Indiana-Ohio border right now.
Okay.
So
this is stop number D, letter D?
So pretty much, yeah. So we did Tennessee. We caught a smallmouth there, and we actually,
that's a nice
when we were fishing for smallmouth on the first day, we didn't even realize this, but they stocked that river with rainbow trout. Oh. So I ended up catching a pretty nice rainbow trout, which was a complete surprise, but was really cool.
Very nice.
And then we did Kentucky, and we caught a spotted bass there. And actually, Daniel caught not a big one, but Daniel ended up catching a blue catfish. And I actually hooked into a muskie. But it broke me off because I was not expecting that. And then we did Illinois, which was a bluegill. So that was, not very challenging. So we're gonna go to a pond today. Indiana doesn't have a state fish, an official state fish or an unofficial state fish. I've been thinking about, my dad has been talking to me about maybe starting a petition or something for that, but for the meantime we're just going to catch a fish in Indiana just so that we can say we've done it. And then Ohio has an unofficial state fish of a walleye, so that's our next stop.
Do you know where you're going in Ohio? Going up to the Great Lakes, doing a lake?
Yeah, we're going to go to Lake Erie there, see if we can get out on a boat. If not, we got like a 2-person inflatable kayak. So, it would be better to go out with someone. We're going to see what we can do. But if not, we're just going to do our best with the kayak there.
Okay. And then from Ohio, it's north to Michigan?
Yes. Yeah. So from Ohio to Michigan and then Wisconsin.
How's the weather right now?
It's raining here right now, but besides a couple days of rain in Kentucky, it's been pretty good. So no complaints there. And it's not too cold yet. I'm sure it'll get colder to go up.
You have some snow forecasts for out that way.
Really?
Yes.
I have not checked yet, so that'll be interesting.
Right. What have you packed gear-wise and just stuff to live with since the last trip? What lessons have you learned and what to bring?
We brought a lot more like instant food. So we've been getting water from gas stations like he told us to.
Yes.
And doing ramen, oatmeal, instant coffee, that kind of stuff, which helps keeps the cost down instead of having to buy food every night.
I guess all that hot water and that food keeps you warm too.
Yeah, it does.
Any fishing gear that you brought that you left behind or didn't have last time other than a free baitcaster rod and a loaner 5-weight?
Yeah, so those, that's definitely a bit of an upgrade. Really, we really didn't bring anything more than we did last time. Just a lot more warm clothes. But fishing gear wise, it's pretty much the same.
Do you have fingertipless fishing gloves?
No, we do not.
If you find some kind of military surplus store, they'll usually have a pair that are about $6 or $7 olive wool. You're going to need those.
Okay.
What kind of donations have y'all been getting? Any money coming in?
A few. When we posted the route for this one, we got some kind of like in preparation for this second route. It's not moving as fast as it was in the beginning, but that's okay.
You've been offered some places to fish as well. So we've got Jim down in Florida. Lee Barbie mentioned something about where he is. Anyone else reach out, say they could take you out or feed you while you're on the road trip?
In Texas, the fish is a Guadalupe bass, and we actually have, my family has some good friends that we use. We used to live down in Richmond for a couple of years, and we have some good friends who live down there and then moved out to near the San Antonio area, so we're going to stay with them there. Weirdly enough, I just found out that I have South African cousins that moved to Mississippi, so we have a place to stay there as well. Let's see. We've got a good friend in Georgia who we're staying with. I think that's it for now.
Have you been meeting any strange folks under bridges at 2 a.m?
In Illinois, there were a lot of strange folks. We were in farm territory there, so we saw a lot of interesting characters driving tractors down the highway and stuff like that, but we have not really run into anyone while we're fishing yet.
Anything else that's just been going on? Odd things you've seen? Favorite fish you've caught? What are you learning on your road trip? You stopping in fly shops at all just to look in?
Not yet, just because it's been all bass and stuff, which obviously, I know you can catch on a fly, but for me for us at least, it's a little easier to catch those on spinning because we do that at home a lot.
Right. So you guys probably don't know, but there's a certain quality to a fly shop that you won't get in like a Dick's or a big box store. It's a friendly atmosphere. Well, you should be friendly, but you'll find something different when you go in your first fly shop. Just look around and talk. It's a completely different mentality.
Well, for Michigan, it's a brook trout, so we're going to be looking for a local fly shop with some advice there. So, we'll do that.
Okay. Very cool. And what road are you taking up through Michigan? Because you're going to be passing some pretty sweet Steelhead and Michigan rivers. I know you guys drove right over the Salmon River on your last trip in New York and didn't stop. Are you going to try and catch some other fish while you're out there besides just the state fish?
I'm not sure which road we're going to be taking up, but we've made pretty decent time so far, so we are not opposed to stopping.
Yeah, you definitely got to go find some salmon, hook into one of those. That'll change you. And then you got to get steelhead. That would be awesome. Yeah, very cool. All right, guys. Well, we will check in a week or so and see how things are going. Your parents are still cool with all this?
Yep. Yes, they are.
And are you having more fun than sitting in lectures right now with English 101?
Oh, absolutely.
Very cool.
No question.
All right, guys. Dan, have fun. No snoring.
He's having fun, no snoring.
And I'll check in with you guys in a week or so.
Okay, thanks so much. Have a
fun.
Good one.
Be safe. All right, Art, we are in person, about equal distance, arm length apart. There are kids that are doing the one chip challenge in the yard, and we're going to talk nymphs. So, what have you been up to since we spoke last? And is there really a massive surge in fly fishing right now?
Yes, I have been up to that. There is a massive surge in fly fishing. Kind of, I've heard it compared to the river runs through it days as a fly fishing retailer. But yes, I mean, we've been fortunate enough to be in outdoor retail, and business has been really good. And I think, it's a great way to socially distance, and people are definitely taking advantage of it.
I dig it, man. It helps me get more clients.
Yeah.
I'm getting calls all the time.
Yeah.
It's weird, though. I can only work weeknights, and it's dark now at 7. Looking forward to daylight savings.
Yeah.
All right. You've been out fishing. You caught some browns the other day?
I have, yeah. I've been, I've been getting out, a lot more than last year. Fishing a lot of spring creeks. I had my PA trip that we talked about, and I hit Fishing Creek, Spring Creek, and Penn's Creek, all low water, unseasonably low.
They're going to get swamped this weekend, though.
Yes. I will be fishing probably PA again, maybe even this weekend.
Nice.
Potentially. And if not, Maryland.
If you go through Carlisle, I
Yep.
might need you to stop at the beer distributor for me.
Yeah, and I very well may, because honestly, if Carlisle gets a lot of rain, I will go fish the Latort if there's a bump, because streamer fishing and maybe big nymphs might
big bacon flies
might be good there. That place can be good.
Some of these pickle bugs
in high water.
Let's first off, the militarization of nymphs. Why are they tactical these days? Is it because their color?
I think
sharpness.
I think tactical is just a great sort of buzzword that's used across many industries, fly fishing included. I think it's just to sort of describe something that is very well thought out and a purpose-driven piece of gear, And so I think that the tactical leaders and nymphs are obviously designed for our high stick, tight line nymphing. Some people call it European nymphing. Some people call it Czech nymphing, French nymphing, Spanish nymphing. Typically,
Euro nymphing would just encompass it all.
Yeah, I mean, and I hate to like call it that, because
they're so very. It's like you can't just say there's European cuisine. There's French cuisine. There's Italian cuisine.
Yeah, right.
They each have their own little style and leaders
right.
and indicators.
That's right. Yeah, and we at our store we call it nymphing without borders.
I like that.
that's what we call it.
How were your wings tonight?
Those were delicious, man. What was the rub on there? Those are really good.
That's the Meat Church. Meat Church, I should say.
Meat Church. Okay.
It's a tasty wing.
It was very good.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
And you heard the wife saying how she hates how I want to Traeger everything. But I'm making chicken stew tomorrow. I want to Traeger it.
Oh, wow. Yes. I don't know if you know this, but she actually ate a fourth of that chip.
Really?
Yeah. You already walked away.
She puts hot sauce on her hot sauce. We got... Hold on, let me get this stuff. These veggies are
you didn't quite make it up there. What do you got there?
So, I've always been a fan of Melinda's hot sauces. But yeah, like this one. Oh,
on the laptop. Very good. Melinda.
TJ Maxx.
So that's really good. So this reminds me of something that comes out of Florida.
I'm already sweating.
In the Fort Pierce area. It's a little hotter.
Whew.
But it's called Gator Sauce. And we put this Gator Sauce on a Ritz cracker, and we dip it in what they call smack. And
smack is what people ask me to smoke with them or inject around a 4 mile run.
Yes, I have gotten rid of all of those friends. Smack is sort of a kind of a fish pate type of thing. You put a little bit of the Gator Sauce, the fish pate on the cracker, and it's phenomenal.
Nice. All right. So I would say that nymphs, probably the oldest form of flies. Because what they were using probably wasn't hydrophobic at the time. Probably sank. People were tying stuff to a piece of metal or bone. It's a pretty old form of fishing. When should someone fish nymphs? Going back 3,000 years, when's a good time to fish a nymph?
Well, I think, I think if we're fishing for trout, I think the answer is always. I don't think there's ever a bad time to be nymphing, and I think that, and your listeners already know this, but I think your highest probability of catching a fish is almost always going to be on a nymph. Yeah, I really do. I think it's it's definitely the most tried and true technique. I think that when you learn how to nymph effectively, almost regardless of the conditions, I think that you're going to have more success, and that even includes during periods of a hatch. I think that when you see, you hear people say like every fish in the river is rising. Probably not. Probably 20% of the fish are rising, and the other 80% are eating the nymphs. Right. that are active and emerging at that particular moment in time. So. I've gone through periods. All of my years in fly fishing have been in stages, and fads and sort of interests. And so I get extremely addicted to a certain type or certain style or certain technique. And I fish those techniques even when I shouldn't fish those techniques. And then I get bored with them and I move on to the next technique. And so what's interesting is really the last 3 years, and maybe even like a little bit longer, I've really kind of stopped nymphing up until this past year. And I don't actually believe that I caught a fish in 3 years on a nymph, because I for the most part, just strictly was dry fly fishing. And regardless of the conditions and what was going on, I was dry fly fishing. And, unless I was, some unexpected water event happened while I was there or whatever, didn't expect, and then I would streamer fish. But I just kind of stopped nymphing for a long time. And what's really interesting, one thing that I've noticed, is I've probably caught less trout in the last 3 years than I ever have. And in the last 3 years...
In same rivers you were fishing previous.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see your Instagram.
Just between my willingness to, not throw a nymph. And then also, too, the average size of the fish that, I've been catching, because I've been so obsessed with the dry fly fishing the last few years, has gone down dramatically. And not that I haven't caught some big fish on dry flies, because I have, but just not sort of in the frequency, right? So I kind of stopped targeting big fish exclusively. I stopped, using nymphing techniques for a long time, and really just tried to focus on my dry fly game and kind of use the opportunities that I did have to fish to do that. And I'm back to nymphing this year. And
how much of that is because all your dry flies were stolen?
No, that happened after.
Okay.
Yeah, that happened after. That car break-in scenario was during the quarantine period, actually. So
another reason to go to the beer distributor. I still think we're going to get another lockdown.
Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know. I
try to grow as many squash. Look at that. Look at all that Swiss chard next to you, dude. Grew that from seed, right there.
That's a lot in there. That's probably cumulative 40 calories there. So,
but it's got omega-3 fatty acids.
Right. Okay.
The wife likes to eat. It looks
good.
I planted so much kale.
I would eat it.
We got kale, leeks, garlic, turnips planted maybe. I would give you the cucamelons. Nobody eats the cucamelons. The squirrels don't even eat my cucamelons. It's a sour. I don't know. Sour watermelon cucumber shaped thing, like that big. We'll go out in the dark later.
Yeah.
All right, don't even forget, we got to get you my Helgermite yarn.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So would you say that they're mostly nymphs, because that's just the way they're built? Their mouth is in front, their eyes are on the side. They can look up, they can look down, they're in the water column, and there's just bugs swimming all through there.
So I can't speak to, how they're biologically and evolution, how they have changed or whatever. But yeah, but what I can say is that I think it's a product of, trout will eat whatever is in the most abundance and whatever is easiest to obtain. So I think it's all calorie expenditure per intake sort of ratio that goes on. And I just think that there are just so many nymphs in any given system, right? And if there's not nymphs, there's usually not trout. It's just that simple.
Very nice. Benefits of nymphing besides that?
More fish, and larger fish too. I think
I catch a lot of steelhead on nymphs.
Yes.
Well, that's just a freak system that I'm fishing too.
That's a freak situation. We've talked about that before on other episodes. Those fish aren't actively eating. I think, they're just very opportunistic in those periods of time, and I think a lot of times they're just eating things because they don't like it.
They have to test everything too.
Yeah.
I just did the podcast on grayling, and they found someone did a biopsy or stomach sample, and they found elk hair. More reason to use an elk hair caddis? I don't know.
Maybe.
All right, misconceptions with nymphs. And I guess we're going to get into all the techniques that people might find frustrating, confusing, challenging to learn. I would say that maybe. People ask me, where does your indicator go?
Yeah. I have answers. Hopefully some of them are right.
But general
answers.
Client or customer misconceptions?
About nymphs?
Yeah.
That they always need a bead. What are some other nymph misconceptions? Size? That somehow flipping over rocks and looking at bugs on the bottom of the rocks and trying to substantiate with your Orvis pocket guide to Eastern Mayfly nymphs, you would put
My analogy to that is, do you remember buffets? Mm-hmm. All right, so you go down a buffet and you're like, I'll take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Oh, I don't want that. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Just because there's something under a rock doesn't mean it's also outside of the rock and swimming. That there may be there, they may not be there. They might be a food item, they might not be a food item at that specific moment.
Yes,
trout,
absolutely.
It's cool to look at the bugs, but it doesn't tell you anything about what they're eating at that moment.
And in all the years that I've taught, fly fishing classes, and at this point, I've taught, 10, maybe over 10,000 people how to fly fish, and I've been doing the same spiel for many years about this particular topic, and the topic is, we get to flies, right? In these 101 courses, and I ask people, I say that flies are really, honestly, the most insignificant part of the entire discussion, right? If there's one thing you don't have to worry about, it's really kind of flies, and I use an analogy about I talk about the flipping over rocks. I say, look, somewhere on a river, somewhere in this country, there is a guy or a gal flipping over a rock, right? And they have their Orvis guide to Eastern.
They're doing it in Colorado. They're 2 hours behind.
Yeah, and they're trying to substantiate based on what's underneath these rocks, right? What fly they should tie on. So then I play this little show of hand games with the group, and I say, how many of you have ever caught a fish on a piece of corn? How many of you have ever caught a fish on a hot dog? A piece of soap.
I caught them on slime. When I was a kid, we used to get slime out of the vending machine at Safeway. They'll eat that. Yeah,
and the list goes on. And the reality is those things don't occur in any natural environment anywhere on the planet Earth other than, maybe Whole Foods. The reality here is that trout, and I'm very sorry, Matt Sapinski, who I respect and have read a lot, but fish are not selective creatures.
I was just looking him up to find a nymph.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, you were just talking. I'm looking him up on Instagram. He has a wiggle nymph. That's awesome.
He's got some great stuff, and he's much more knowledgeable than I am. But he wrote this phenomenal book on selectivity, and I think it's relative, and I bought it, and I appreciate it. But animals of any kind are not selective creatures. Those ones are now extinct because they couldn't adapt to their environment. So they're not selective. In fact, it's the opposite. They're opportunistic. And it's not will they eat, it's they have to eat whatever appears to be food.
That's why brook trout are so aggressive.
Yeah, they have to eat it, right? I mean, there's really no way around the situation. So, I hate to blow the next 2 hours of this podcast, but what we are about to get into
is irrelevant.
I mean, it's not irrelevant, but it's just the least important part of the puzzle.
The fishing, the last section is going to be the most important part. Okay. Are there drawbacks to fishing nymphs?
Yes, of course.
Besides just snagging and losing?
Yes, I was going to say snagging, right? Tangling is often synonymous with nymphing, at least for me. You lose a lot more flies that way. And you don't get that sort of, amazing, a fish rises to your fly. And it's just less visual, right? Or chasing a big streamer or something to that effect. Yeah, and it's definitely less challenging, in my opinion, than the other two, or other two methods.
All right. So I did look up the, I don't know where I heard it. Someone once said that Tom Rosenbauer introduced bead-headed nymphs to America.
Maybe he did. I don't know.
Ed Sisti published the book New Professional Methods in Tying the Nymph in 1972, which predates the Italian author, the guy that wears the beret, I believe, that is said to have given Rosenbauer that. I don't know.
I don't know. That could be. There's some things I know about Tom. One thing that, well, first of all, Tom,
tell us something he doesn't know.
If you're out there listening,
that you know.
Tom was nice enough to, because my dry flies were stolen. So I asked him, Tom has, some years back, he gave me some great snowshoe feet.
He's particular about that.
Yes, some great snowshoe feet on the upper Delaware River one time to tie some emergers. And I tied all these beautiful emergers with these snowshoe feet, and they got stolen. I couldn't find any good snowshoe feet, which he actually thinks aren't snowshoe feet. They're relabeled as, they're actually European hair that are relabeled as snowshoe feet.
Do you know the difference between a hare and a rabbit?
No.
Rabbits lay their babies underground, and hares nest above ground. So what we have here are hares, not rabbits.
I didn't know that.
I learned that recently.
But I shot Tom an email, and he was nice enough to send me like half a dozen of these beautiful rabbits feet for me to retie my emergers.
You get a chocolate bar with that?
I did not get a chocolate bar, but I've gotten chocolate bars.
Dan's supposed to get me one.
I've gotten chocolate bars from Tom prior. I think they're called Mattawee, which is probably a river in Vermont or stream in Vermont. But yes, I've gotten the chocolate bars. I believe his daughter does the illustrations. I
didn't know there's illustration.
Yeah, I think it's his daughter that does illustrations on the paper, the wrapping.
Very cool.
But they're very good. So I don't know. I know there's a Carl Coleman, and if you don't know who Carl Coleman is, and most people don't, you should research him. But I believe Carl Coleman to be Tom's mentor. Carl Coleman is just outside the Rochester area.
Carl Coleman Fly Shop? Carl
Yes.
D. Coleman?
I don't know.
Carl Coleman's Fly Shop, fly fishing upstate New York.
Yeah, so he's
Coleman Fly Shop.
So if you want to go down a rabbit hole about Tom Rosenbauer, that might be a good place to start. So I know that Tom has had a relationship with him. I believe Tom went to college in that area, maybe even Syracuse.
He went to a SUNY college.
Oh, okay.
SUNY Rochester, maybe?
But yeah, I mean, whatever Tom says is damn near biblical. But yeah, I do know there's some sort of relationship there with Carl Coleman in Tom's early years. I can't speak to beadhead nymphs, though, however.
All right.
Wouldn't surprise me, though.
So, just to get ahead of this, because we're going to be talking about several patterns throughout this, I just want to get now your favorite fly of this to mimic and popular one at the store. An attractor nymph. Well, I got an order. Attractor nymph. What's popular? What do you fish?
Okay, so
And we have boxes here.
Yeah.
Y'all don't get to see these. These are filthy.
Yeah. Most popular attractor nymph at the store. So it's probably a Prince artist formerly known as Prince something.
That's
something
the new one. That has
degree.
the
Copper John is a popular one as well. And then this kind of rainbow warrior. Yeah, that kind of deal. Yeah, those are a very popular nymph.
Okay.
Attractor nymph as well.
favorite caddis nymph. And I honestly have one. Of all the nymphs I brought up to show you, I have one. It's just like chartreuse egg yarn and a black dubbed head.
Yeah, which is super great. So my favorite caddis nymph is actually right here. It's one of the only flies that I actually that in that box. It might be the only fly in that box
This
that I
little
didn't
jammer?
tie myself. Yep. So that is tied by a good friend of mine who writes music for the Pittsburgh Orchestra named Tom Masala. And I don't actually know what he calls that thing, but it's got a little glass bead.
Little black collar and some olivey dub with maybe not even a speck of flash, maybe a...
Yes, and it's very simple. It's rabbit, and I love it. So
What part of the rabbit?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's one of the only
not
flies I
yours.
don't tie. Anytime I run out, we do a trade. I'll tie him something, and he'll send me couple dozen of those, and as you can see, I think I only have 3 left. So it's time to re-up Tom Masala. Tom catches some big fish. He fishes the South Holston a lot.
Yes.
His favorite guide is John Stunkert. If you look at John Stunkert, if you look at his Instagram, he catches a ton of just huge fish on that river. I've been out with him one time. Hey, actually, what's interesting, what's really cool, my picture is in the South Holston River Lodge. I got a good sized fish that I caught with.
How far is that drive?
With John. About 5.5 from here, I would say. Right down 81.
You should take the boat.
Well,
we need to find some of
It's a
the
good river.
Snowhite sleeping apples.
so that's my favorite one. If I was going to pick like a more commercial style
Here's like
caddis, yeah, it would be something very simple, like one of those Czech type caddises, very slim, skinny body, something that could be-
Perdigon.
I have a couple of those in there for sure, but yeah.
Okay. What about the store?
Something similar. At the store, definitely the most popular caddis pattern is a hare's ear nymph, which most people don't. I don't think most people know that was originally intended to be a caddis pattern.
Did not.
Yeah. In olive,
I do love the hare's ear. I like the natural one.
Peeping caddis is another super popular one. Yep.
That's a Umpqua one, I believe. So in Hudson Trail Outfitters,
I think it's Fulling Mills.
no, that one.
Peeping. Oh, this one here.
No, that's like Bush was president when I picked that up.
Oh man, yeah, this is.
So our shop was
flashback.
getting rid of all their stuff, and their moths were eating all the flies. So I said,
Yes.
"Yo, you got to get rid of those moth-eating flies." They're like, "Just take the whole damn thing, and you get rid of what you want and keep what you want." So
That's awesome.
That's old.
My personal favorite, other than Tom's, as you can see here, my favorite is the olive zebra midge. Is my favorite caddis pattern. It's my favorite midge pattern.
There's a lot of them in there.
Yes.
Did you bite your nails?
Yes, I do.
I could tell. You can't do that these days.
Yeah, but this is
Hoosier.
just a do-it-all nymph. So tie your zebra midges in olive with a little bit of gold, or actually copper. I like even better. Ultra wire with a
Brassy size?
brassy size with a. Ooh, here's a good question for you. Which is smaller, extra small or brassy?
I don't know. I have to go look.
I know.
I don't have my chronometer on me.
Nobody knows.
Can we cut it equal amount and put it on the digital scale?
I think it's small. I think extra small is smaller than brassy,
Okay.
but I'm not sure.
I don't know. I never really used those. All right, Damselfly.
Snow White Damsel for sure has been my favorite. Although I don't really use it as a nymph though.
Neither do I. I don't know
use
what
it.
it is.
Yeah, I use it as a streamer. And really, honestly, until I kind of got onto that fly, I never really used damselfly nymphs much at all for anything. And then I think you sent me a video of a damselfly eating a fish.
You found that.
Oh, okay, maybe I.
And that's when I was like, yeah, I'm not putting that in my aquarium anymore. Those things are vicious.
Yeah, and then ever since then, I was like, oh, that's just the coolest
All right,
thing.
we have-
Yeah,
hold
that's
on.
my favorite for sure.
Sounds like a Huey.
Yeah. And then I don't know if anybody knows.
That's Fairfax County
Probably
Police
nobody knows.
helicopter.
I actually have my own.
Hold on a second. That's Eagle 1. It's going to scare the bear away. You got to see the bear that was around here the other day. You ready for this thing?
I've actually developed my own variant of the Snow White Damsel. Yeah, that's insane.
You like the egg yarn.
Yeah, so I tied the egg yarn Snow White Damsel,
I dig it.
and then I braid the egg yarn, and I've caught steelhead now on that. I've caught trout now. I've caught smallmouth. I've caught plenty of shad on it, and I don't think it doesn't get the kind of movement that the natural one does.
But it's easier to find egg yarn than damsel plumes.
It is that because those are tough to come by, and I do think it's more durable. But it doesn't look as realistic. If you put the two flies next to each other, it looks more realistic. But in the water, definitely not. It doesn't have the movement.
I tied up egg yarn clousers for my trip to Florida to look like snotty bait fish. Never got to fish them. That was your inspiration. All right, your favorite egg fly, most popular store egg fly.
Most popular store egg fly is definitely the glow bug. My favorite is the 3-loop pink lady. Yeah, 3-loop pink lady. Yeah,
Helgermite.
definitely.
We're getting my yarn tonight. You're going to tie up some
Yeah,
of mine.
I like that one. To be perfectly honest with you, I gotta go.
I've never really fished Helgermites for trout. I know that the
for-
Mossy
for-
Creek boys
for
love
trout,
it.
For trout, I don't have an opinion. For smallmouth, I prefer the Chuckcraft, the
Critter mite?
Critter mites. Yes.
All right. Favorite Mayfly pattern? Favorite store Mayfly?
My favorite Mayfly. Well, okay, so if we're off of a tractor Mayfly, my favorite Mayfly is definitely the pheasant tail, and
English or American?
Also, and that's also the most popular in the store, right?
Word.
And that's definitely the most popular nymph, and it would definitely be American.
All right.
Yeah.
Midge, you're going to go with the zebra?
Definitely the zebra midge.
I just tied this I just do thread, glass bead, and like a little puff behind it. That's like fish in Colorado.
That looks great.
I like the Ginny midge, too.
Okay.
It's a pretty one.
Okay. Yeah.
Scud?
So I have my own that I tie, which is right here, and this is called the Ziploc Stud, and I do it in a few different colors, right? And that's like and so what that guy is it's got a small tungsten bead on an Orvis Scud hook. It's got a collar of rabbit from a dark part of the ear, like kind of like the back side of the ear where it's dark. And then I use...
That looks like a caddis, man.
I use Hare's Ice Dub for the body in some various colors, and I use a Ziploc bag and Ziploc bag for the shell back and ultra wire. Yeah, it does. It does kind of look like a caddis, and that's kind of by design.
All right. What about crest bugs? I got the Coburn crest bug. I've never fished it.
Humphrey's crest bug is my favorite.
And getting Larry on here is not easy.
Hump's crest bug.
Did you got one of them, Jammers?
I
can look it up.
No.
We'll all Google
Those
it.
were also stolen.
Oh, jerk.
This is all stuff that I've tied.
Yes, can I help you? Go away.
This is all stuff that I've tied just kind of in the last couple months or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Got a favorite mysid? You ever get out west? This is an Umpqua mysid, but my preference is the Craven one, which is tied with white egg yarn and black rubber legs as the eyes. I put a little dot of orange glow bug yarn in to look like guts or eggs.
So... I've only fished these once on the Blue River.
Yeah, man. Below Dillon.
Right outside of Silverthorne.
Yeah, it's the only time I've caught one on.
And the one I've used was like probably that fly or something very similar to it.
All right, sweet. Favorite stonefly?
Definitely Pat's rubber legs, also known as the girdle bug, also known as the turd stone,
pickle bug,
also
maybe?
known as the pickle bug.
Yeah.
And then here's about.
That's insane, dude.
100 or so of those.
It looks like a spaceship full of aliens getting ready to.
And these are also great for steelhead as well. I use this
everything.
For everything. It's very rare that.
What's that one tied with?
This is not on a rig.
Dude, when you tie those with my Helgermut yarn,
this is chenille, and then that's just
the black part.
That's Sharpie. That's all that is Sharpie.
All right.
A lot of Sharpies in my.
What's your favorite worm? I see you got a squirmy. You remember you can't leave those in your car when it's hot.
Yeah, so these are squirmies that I've tied. That's definitely my favorite one.
All right, man. Let's talk about how patterns have changed throughout the years. Classic patterns like a Parmachine bell or a partridge in orange to a pheasant tail and a killer bug to the Copper John.
So here's what's great. Well,
fish haven't changed.
No, and honestly, unlike streamers, nymphs and dry flies have actually changed very little, I think. Right? They've just been made tactical, right? And synthetics, have obviously added little a la some things to many of our traditional favorite patterns. Maybe there's a flashback, maybe there's some dubbing or whatever in the collar, but a pheasant's tail is still a pheasant tail, right? And a hare's ear is still a hare's ear, and a partridge in orange is,
still,
that's not a traditional kind, but there's kind of a, they're all pretty darn similar, I think.
So we already went over selectivity. So are you matching hatches or mostly just prospecting? Because knowing that they're opportunistic feeders, they're going to eat what you put in front.
I think when you're nymphing, you should always be prospecting, right? I think you're doing yourself a disservice by, wasting your time trying to figure out what, I think instead you should go with sort of the standard issue nymphs that are proven, tried and true. And just sort of make adaptations to those flies based on your fishery, right? So regardless of the time of year, a pheasant tail is going to be an excellent way to start, or past rubber legs, or a hare's ear, or a zebra midge, or just things that you typically find in every fishery. And then you can sort of adapt those flies, whether you're tying them yourself or whether you're buying them after you get to know the fishery to figure out what they need. So there's a fishery that I just recently started exploring that, I figured out that red is definitely the color. And so...
Which is odd because red wavelength disappears once you go underwater.
It's definitely the color. And another guy that works with me fishes it as well, Mike Trunzo, and Mike, has also discovered that red
he likes the brown trouts.
Yes, he likes the brown trouts. So red copper johns and red zebra midges are out fishing other stuff a lot. And we know this because
back in the day,
we're throwing 2 flies all the time.
You would have fished a serendipity back in the day.
Maybe.
So you're doing a 2-fly rig, and they're picking off the red one.
They love the red one.
All right, man.
But the size of your trout goes up dramatically when you use a patch rubber leg.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you tying? So we're going to do tying and then fishing these flies. Are you going realistic or impressionistic? If someone's going to look at your box, do your mayflies have 3 legs on each side and 3 split tails?
Never.
Or do you have gills on your midges?
Some of them, maybe. But no, on my midges. No, never.
Oh, and we didn't talk about dragonflies. Here's my dragonfly. It's made out of my Helgermut yarn.
I saw that. It's pretty. That
gnarly,
is really
dude.
cool.
It's just furled.
So there's some amazing impressionistic tires, and I want to call out this guy that I found on Instagram, who is really one of my favorite ones to follow if you're looking for realistic. He's getting some impressionistic stuff too, but his name is Luca Baroselli. Luca Baroselli. So that's Luca _BAROSSELLI. And he is Italian. He has got flies in there that are so beautiful, I would never even consider even casting them. And he uses a lot of CDC. And he's got some amazing things. And he posts a lot of great big fish photos, so they clearly work. But
Luca?
Yeah.
Are you following him on your store page?
Yep. That's LUCA.
Luca _.
Yeah, the underscore I think is critical there. So
Luca Brazzi.
Luca Brazzi. That's what we're going to call him from now on. He's got just amazing flies, and these things look so unbelievably realistic. And he basically puts CDC in absolutely everything. But look at that.
Yeah, that's. But the thing is, once that gets wet, it just all collapses.
I have no idea. I
found him. Luca _Baroselli 2S2L1I.
But no, I want my nymphs to be the exact opposite. I don't want my nymphs to look like any one specific thing, right? I want them to be taken for a broad range.
I love this little dude.
And that's why the mayfly, or that's why the pheasant tail is so good, right? Because it could just be anything.
So I'm wetting a killer bug right now. I mean, just look at that thing. Looks like everything.
Yeah, that's another great fly, right? I mean, it could be a crayon fly, it could be a caddis, right? I mean, any kind of leopard. Yeah, shrimp.
I'm going to give you some of that yarn, too, to play with. All right, speaking of yarn, how much do you do synthetic and how much do you do natural?
In nymphs, it's pretty 50-50.
There's a lot of... do you remember grills from back in the day? The hip-hop rappers' teeth? These rows look like their teeth. There's a lot of silver.
Yes.
Looks like my mouth with fillings.
Yes.
And there's flash. And you don't have your name on your box in case you drop it.
No.
It just says loser.
It does say loser sticker. My daughter put that on.
Well, they're going to send this to...
so true. Yeah.
What's that singer's name? I'm a Loser Baby?
Oh my God! We were just listening to that song. Is it Beck?
Beck, yeah.
It's
this
Beck,
could be Beck's box.
It's Beck.
My wife loves the song Deborah by Beck, I believe. All right, little 50-50.
So yeah, definitely 50-50.
What materials do you choose based on their properties? Mostly hydrophilic materials that are going to absorb water and sink?
I want movement. I definitely want movement. I definitely want... sink I don't worry about because I definitely will... I've got no qualms about using split shot or putting, lead-free wire in the nymphs or whatever. I do realize that Perdigon nymphs, and with the advent of tungsten beads and things like that, you can get things down faster.
And the fact that you're losing them, man, that's kind of... You're gambling. Do I want to catch more fish or do I want to flush money down the creek?
Mm-hmm.
I lose flies, man. I can't use a tungsten.
I think movement. You can see a lot of my flies have, collars of partridge or rabbit or things that are wispy, and
we'll get into soft tackles, man. I think
move in the water
when you can soft tackle it.
Yeah,
there's nothing better. There's
no reason to not put a hackle on the collar of your fly.
Few things get me excited in fly tying other than like a really good soft tackle.
Yeah,
it's still when I was at Justin's house out in Colorado.
Yeah.
He had the nicest soft tackle skin I'd ever seen.
Really?
I probably should have just nicked it.
This one, I've just gotten so many fish on that.
It's so buggy looking.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
Picture that in my dirty paw.
Here's like a sulfur kind of version here with these quill bodies have really
natural quill or synthetic quill.
These are natural quills.
Did you soak yours first?
These are hand stripped quills. No. Should I soak them?
I think that makes them more pliable.
Really?
Again, I'm not a quill tyer. I used to read a lot about A.K. Best and his love of quills. That's mostly for dries.
Really? Yeah. I don't know. Here's like a sulfur-ish kind of one.
My goodness.
And then here's a black one, like a black and red.
I feel bad for y'all at home. I mean, we're gonna have pictures of these. Art just might have to take a picture of every one of these.
Yeah.
And then, or I'll do it downstairs and upload it to the blog.
Yeah, and then here's one of my favorites, a guide's choice.
Which is pretty much. I mean, like that's similar to my head nymph in charge. It has the best of everything in it.
Yeah.
And theoretically, if I was going to fish nymphs, that's probably the only thing I would fish.
Yeah, and that's a great fly. I mean, I tie these by the dozens, and use them a lot, right? And here's a pheasant tail one with and then orange or red collars should be.
All right. So the next
everything.
question: hot spots.
Yeah.
Why at the head versus any other part of the body?
No, I think you could put it anywhere.
Okay.
I think you put it where
it's convenient to put it there.
It's convenience. Yeah, it's completely convenience. I do believe that fish find hot spots. Absolutely.
Just something that sticks that fly out against every other morsel of something swimming by.
Gives them a reason to look.
Garnish.
Yeah. I like that.
It's appeal. What about same with collars?
Same with collars.
Have
you ever used the Hairline weighted collars? There's like collar beads.
No.
Fish collars.
Really?
Yes.
No.
So you can put a bead behind your bead.
No.
Okay.
No, that's just thread for me.
Other than Ziploc bags, epoxy, and shells on your flies?
Loon. The Loon clear, UV, whatever, in the thick, thin, and flow is probably on every single one of these nymphs.
All right.
Now, at this point. Most of them, at least, yeah.
Nice. Let's get into hooks, man. That's a pretty serious consideration. What sizes for each, and do you carry multiple sizes of each, like a 14, 16, 18?
So, yes. So, oh boy. So, some people argue that a range in sizes is more important than variety in colors. Now, I disagree with that. Tom Rosenbauer says that a lot. And he's a lot smarter than me. But I disagree with that, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's put a little common sense here into fly fishing, okay? So let's say that your stream has got a ton of size 16 mayflies, right? And let's say sulfurs are hatching, right? So you got 16, 18 mayflies, right? So but a brand new sort of, let's call it a baby, right? Hatchling nymph.
A fresh one.
A fresh nymph that has now just became a nymph. How big is that, right? And I think it's reasonable to assume that nymphs grow over time. They get larger, right? Before they get large
metamorphosis, like a grasshopper. It goes boom, 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 boom.
Right. And so they get larger, right? And they take, I've been told that they take roughly a year in most cases to become an adult, right? And sort of hatch.
Sexual maturation in scientific terms we would go with.
Okay. All right.
Because they're ready they're hatching because they're ready to reproduce.
Sure. So if there's nymphs that are 1 year old, then I think it's reasonable to assume that there's nymphs that are 6 months old, right? And then I think beyond that, it's reasonable to assume that there's nymphs that are 2 months old,
right?
And even 1 month old,
and they're all getting lost in that drift going downstream.
Yeah, and so I think that regardless, there's a a variety of sizes of not only multiple kinds of nymphs, but that exact same nymph in every stream. And one thing that I have learned by flipping over rocks is that there is absolutely no consistency in what you will find.
Right. So, analogy, let's say you're a cannibal, and instead of eating chicken wings out front, you're looking at all the people walking by on my street. Everyone's a different size. We're all the same organism, but there's like 4 foot tall people, 5 foot tall. I got a 7 foot tall neighbor and client that walks by here.
And then, if you're a predator, the one that you attack is the weakest one from the group, right? The one that's easiest to obtain.
I say, don't strip that woolly bugger so fast, man. Lions don't eat the fast gazelle; they eat the gimpy one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In fishing terms, they use the term crippled often.
So I don't know how important, honestly, the size of the nymph really is. So kind of.
If they're gonna eat a 12, they're gonna eat a 14.
I think so.
It's like.
Yeah. I think so.
They don't have a.
I wouldn't recommend fishing size 12 midges, right? I think you should be in the ballpark, right? So my
that would be a big old brassy like that.
Yeah, so I think my midges are definitely 18, 20.
They're very shiny.
22, right? And my mayflies are kind of 18. But I have some 20s in here as well. But that's mostly for low water. Right, like I usually
go. Plop.
Yeah, I go smaller. If it's low and clear, I will definitely downsize the nymphs. If it's high water, I will go big.
Did you hear the North Branch got drained yesterday?
No.
On the Delaware. It's ankle deep.
The North Branch?
Hold on.
Or you mean the West Branch?
West Branch. Let me find Futter's Twitter.
No. Oh, I did not hear that.
Let's find Joe D. Malderis.
Joe's a funny dude. I like that guy.
Where is it?
But sometimes,
eels. Something about someone's foot.
When I fish pens, I fish this is a green drake nymph that I tie. And it doesn't look like any green drake nymph, probably. Or maybe it does, I don't know. But I've been tying this for years.
It's beautiful. It's so buggy looking.
And I fish that when I'm on Penn's Creek.
My neighbor's got a place there. We need to
catches fish.
We need to go find Doc. Steve Sautner. He may have posted about it.
Have fun with your flies. Like if you tie, just tie whatever you think, and chances are it's going to work. I mean, with nymphs, there is never a nymph. I don't think I've ever seen a nymph that I'm not convinced would catch fish. You know what I mean? Like most of them are great.
I cannot find the yeah. So apparently they dropped the water to like ankle deep in the Delaware yesterday. All right, let me grab a beer. Do you want to talk about weight of your hooks while I'm gone, and then you'll surprise me when I?
No, I'm gonna hit the head.
All right, it's out back.
Yeah, and then you can edit that out.
You know what? I can pause this one.
There you go.
All right, we're back. Y'all didn't get to see that, but we're back. So weight of a hook. How deep in the water column do you want to hook based on the specific gravity of that hook? And hooks are all made of the same metal pretty much, so it's just the actual thickness of a heavy nymph hook.
So couple things. One, if you're putting, all right. So there's a few layers to this. One is decide the nymph, the specific pattern. You have to find a hook that fits the pattern, right? Whether it's heavy or not heavy. The second thing you need to do is figure out the proportions of the nymph. So like for me, if I decide whether or not this nymph's going to have a bead, right? If it's going to have a bead, like let's say I'm tying a Mayfly nymph imitation. If I'm going to tie a bead, I need to figure out how long the hook is, right? So typically it's 2 to 3x long if it's a bead.
Okay. Extra space.
Yep.
And Charlie Craven's got a great article breaking down hooks in Spring or Summer Fly Fisherman. It's a pretty good article.
All right, so here
and beads also just aid in you not covering the head if you're a novice or experienced tyer.
So here's an example. Here's a guide's choice. Okay. So if I tie a guide's choice, I'm going to tie.
I got butterfingers.
That's all right. If I'm going to use a guide's choice as an example, this is a fly that has It's got a bead. It's got an orange collar of thread, and it has a collar of partridge, right? So I use a 3X hook because I'm putting 3 things at the head of the fly.
Do you off the top of your head know that model of hook? 7038.
No, it's a Daiichi 3X long nymph hook. I don't know what the model number is. 2 things on the head of the hook, I use a 2X long hook, right? So in the case of, a good case here would be this flashback pheasant tail that I tied, right? Right? So there's a bead, and there's the collar of peacock, right? So there's 2 things on that. That's a 2X long hook. So an example of when I would use like a 1X long hook is if I'm only putting 1 thing on the head of the fly, right? So in the case of this soft hackle here, there's just 1 thing, which is the hackle of partridge. That's a 1X. So
that's
long
very similar to my big steelhead Mayfly.
Oh yeah, sure.
That if I had 1 steelhead fly for salmon,
So that's the rule. That's the rule that I go by for the length, and that's a rule that I just made up myself. I don't know that that's a steadfast rule, but that's the rule that I go by. As far as the weight of the nymph goes, that's going to depend on the particular dimensions of the fly itself, right? So if I can put a bead and lead-free wire into my hook, I'm not so concerned with the weight of that hook.
You're going to compensate in other ways. So
I'm going to compensate in other ways. Yeah.
Hook gap.
Yeah, so I think hook gap is important, but only important to the dimensions, proportions of the fly. I don't think hook gap is as important on nymphs as it is on streamers. Not that you want to, have a hook gap that isn't wide enough, but I definitely don't think that it's as critical as it is with streamers.
All right. Hook eye. Are you using big eye hooks because you're using tiny tippet? Straight eye, down eye?
If I'm using a bead, I typically like a downed eye. If I'm using a bead, I really don't, to be perfectly frank with you, I don't pay a ton of attention to the orientation of the eye. I think that's a little much.
Specialty nymph hooks. We mentioned this before. There's no hair's ear hook. There's no specific hook for a cat's rubber leg.
Yes, I will not pay extra for a barbless hook because I can smash. And every single one of these flies in this box are barbless because I smashed them all before I even tied the fly.
Lefty told me do not smash your barbs perpendicular. That you should smash them inline direction of the hook, not to the side. I don't really see the difference, but I guess that'll smash down.
How do you smash them any other way than
so instead of going
perpendicular?
You put the hemostat in there like this and smush it.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
I had some fun with Lefty at the 2-fly tournaments.
Yeah.
Wish we recorded more of that. Euro, you just go with the... And those nymphs, which we covered in Joe Bragg's podcast, have a specific angle to their hook eye to make them jiggy.
I could see that. There are certain the kind of Euro style nymphs. The Euro techniques work just as good with regular nymphs too.
They just ride more barblessy.
Yeah, and then I think the jig nymphs. The jig nymphs definitely snag less.
Right, that's what I meant. Not barblessly, but like clouds are stylish.
But the beads are twice the price, and the hooks are twice the price. So, and you lose half the nymphs. So you do the math.
Do you go for a balance in your hook to make your fly ride a certain direction?
No.
All right.
I don't even know what that is.
Word.
Yeah.
Dubbing. Natural, synthetic, blends. Do you make your own? Do you use belly button lint? What you got going?
All of the above.
Like, I got some belly button lint right here.
Yeah, I definitely... now, I prefer natural dubbing. I really love that Hair's ice dub. If I'm gonna use
dyes
synthetic,
your fingers.
Yeah, it does. If I'm gonna use synthetic, I really like that one because it's
buggy.
It's buggy. It's got little hairs that stick out. Yep.
Bugs have little hairs on them. I don't know as much aquatics, but
yeah.
You have is it trichomes besides just on the wing of a caddis?
I have no idea. Like the little barbules that come off of, I don't know.
Bugs have apophoses and divots, and they're not smooth bodied as people think.
No, I think less is more, but
that's you always hear that less dubbing than what you need.
Always less dubbing than what you need.
How much dubbing loop versus just twisting on with a little bit of nose grease or earwax?
Very rarely do I use dubbing wax. And dubbing loops I only use in streamers and bars when I tie bars hex nymph. It's the only time I use a dubbing loop when I tie nymph.
Soft hackles, partridge. Do you like a hen hackle? I like those on my jumbo johns. This is a big steelhead jumbo john. I also tie that for carp.
Yes, hen hackles for big flies like this one, which is probably like an 8. Partridge for little flies.
I love, partridge.
Yes.
It's something you should never buy sight unseen.
Absolutely.
Like ordering a Russian mail order bride.
Yes.
Back in the day. I mean, email order brides like mine are fine because I'm going to show you. I found this at my in-laws' house. I can show you the picture my wife had when we first met. I took this at her parents' house. I got to go back to Labor Day weekend. I had no idea what she looked like when we first met.
A hackle gauge is critical.
Never used one of those.
I love using that hackle gauge. Whiting sells one.
Do you keep it on your vise?
I do.
Wait, look at that. You got no idea what that woman looks like.
Yeah.
I was like, her profile said she was 7 feet tall. Oh my God. All right. Do you tie them in tip end or stem end first and wrap forward?
Tip end, always. Yeah.
All right.
As with hackles on woolly bug, actually hackles on just about everything tip end.
All right, we're going to discuss added weight beads and cones. Preference for glass beads?
I've never tied with a glass bead. I don't know that I've ever used.
They do break.
Yep.
And
but
9-year-old girls take them.
But my favorite, well, I use glass beads and streamers.
All right. Cool thing of glass beads, you can use your loon. I use Solares. Take a small, size 14 hook, put on 6 little green beads, and then start with a black bead for head, 4 or 5 little green beads, coat it with epoxy, and hit it.
Oh, really?
A French dude showed me.
Yeah. I'll have to check
Beautiful.
that out. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
But my favorite little caddis here has a glass bead.
Right.
That's the one that Tom Masella ties.
Metal beads. Preference for brass. Preference because price. We already discussed that.
Yes.
You can use other weights to get it down. Do you go shiny, dull, textured, faceted, if you will?
Depends on what it is.
I love this. I love this little jammer.
So tungsten beads are extremely expensive. So if I'm tying a fly that I can get the lead-free wire on without messing with the proportions of the fly, I always do. So I use brass. So then I use brass, right? And then I end up using a lot less dubbing to build up the body because that helps.
Dubbing's so expensive these days.
Yeah, so lead-free wire helps to build the. You use less dubbing when you use it. So in the case of like a zebra midge where I do not have the ability to put the lead-free wire because it would mess with the proportions, I use the tungsten beads. So kind of as an example here, all these flies in here. Only a handful of them have tungsten beads because they are expensive. They do.
It's for specific. We'll get into that with fishing, water depth and stuff.
Yeah, and then often, and I haven't really tied them yet to replace them. Often, I have a lot of unweighted flies with no bead, and then what I'll do is I'll carry some beads. I have like a little bead box that I carry on the stream, and I'll often just slip a bead onto the tippet before I tie the fly on. And then voila, beadhead nymph.
Do you ever use putty?
I have used the putty. I've got mixed feelings about it. Sometimes I love it when it works. Sometimes I hate it when it doesn't. But it does work. I don't like it when the water's really cold. It's hard to get on and off. It's a little less malleable when the water's warm. It works wonders. It's great.
Do you ever use those preformed scud weighted bodies that are lead and you just wrap over it with dubbing and it looks like a scud?
No.
Okay.
No. I've seen them. They look pretty cool though.
What about skulls? Fish skulls?
Only for
3D printed
only for streamers.
I have an idea with Martin.
I like their products for streamers. I think for nymphs it's a little much. I don't see the added benefit.
The caddis head, the Mayfly head.
Yeah,
they're not looking at it that analytically.
No, I don't think so.
Flash. What kind of flash do you like?
I would say Crystal Flash and Nymphs, Flashaboo, or the Mirage. What is that called? Tinsel, or whatever. I'll use that in the flashbacks. But often I think those are a little too gaudy. So sometimes, like in the case of like this one, there's just one strip of Flashaboo down the back of that green drake.
That's the first plane that's flown over us all night.
Oh, really?
It's kind of strange. That's Frontier.
You can tell by the sound of the engine.
You live here enough. You fish at Gravelly along the Potomac. I told you. I guess the helicopter. You can guess the plane. Yeah, I just use a little bit of. Did I tie that? You tied that.
No, I tied that.
Yeah. And then you got the epoxy on it because brown trout teeth, they're going to tear up a little flash.
Matter of fact, here. So I hooked a decent sized brown on pens on this one. Not this past trip, but I think the trip before that. And you can see how he pulled the quill ribbing like off the because of his teeth.
Charlie Craven likes.
I love Charlie Craven flies, by the way.
The dude's insane. Monofilament. He'll use like 5X as a wrap instead of a wire on his Mayflies. And I just need to email him and ask him why.
I don't know, maybe the translucence or something.
I don't know.
Degree.
Yeah. All right. Your preference for rubber legs. We talked about brands and stuff. So Flexi Floss, Centipede, Round Rubber, skirts. You got a little bit of everything up in your.
Yes.
His rubber leg box is insane.
Yes. There's lots of.
Hold that up for the camera. We're gonna get a picture of that. You too. Oh, smile. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever I can get. These little centipede ones or insect silly leg.
So tiny.
There's so many different ones. Those ones are great. They offer a lot of movement. They're very weak. They break off.
I like the round rubbers.
Yes. So then the silly legs are flatter, right?
And don't do well with UV light.
And they're the most firm, I think. I think those are the most durable, are the silly legs. So I'll use those. And you'll see here that I'll actually tie the same exact fly, often with different legs and different color legs, right? So the
black and chartreuse ones stick out. It's a black body with a chartreuse.
So this one's purple and chartreuse.
Oh, purple.
Yeah.
Hey now.
Purple and chartreuse.
I would call this the Joker.
Yeah. Here, this one's like a bar. So that big 25-inch brown that I posted not too long ago with our new guy, James, was teaching him how to Euro nymph.
Oh my goodness!
You see that fish?
That's all head.
So that was caught on.
On like a rusty orange. I got rusty orange.
This rubber leg here.
Yarn.
That was his first time ever Euro nymphing.
So I've got this fancy Hemingway bug parts. You also have.
Okay, best wing case.
What's my dude from Sweden's name? Jason. Jason looks like a cowboy. He's from Sweden.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like really lifelike wing cases, prefab versus using Swiss straw or a turkey quill?
Yes, so turkey quill, as you know, it's the material that I hate the most in all of fly tying.
Do you spray yours first?
No, I have. I just hate it. I hate it. I can't work with it. It breaks. It's annoying. It requires.
It tastes so good though.
Spray. This is beautiful. This is probably thin skin.
That's an actual body. That's prefab. You tie it in and fold it over.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Hemingway product.
You can do this with thin skin. So, do you want?
Yeah,
you know what I use most often? I'll either use. I like pheasant tail fibers and a little bit of the epoxy stuff.
Okay. I
often, and I did this a lot when I steelhead fish. The best is black electrical tape.
Nice.
Fold it over, cut it.
It's durable.
Yeah, Scotch tape. Another one. Hit it with a Sharpie. And
my father-in-law fixes everything. I'll show you in the house. There's like
clear duct tape, masking tape.
You'll find it out here.
Tape.
It's silver plumbing tape. You look around my house, dude. Yuri's got that stuff on everything.
Tape makes phenomenal. Yeah, different kinds of tape. Right. Get into it.
Now, when a fish sees a fly, and technically all nymphs are dorsoventrally flattened, we tie them round. Are you more concerned with the top?
Joe Humphreys would tell you to flatten all of your nymphs.
and rub them on a wet, muddy rock.
yeah, to get the scent off.
Yeah. Do you want a profile side, top, ventral?
I don't think about it.
All right.
I don't think about it. That's too much. We've gone down the rabbit hole at that point.
Segmentation. Do you want?
I like segmentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love spaghetti string from the craft store.
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
It's like vinyl rib but hollow. Or
okay. Yeah.
He passed away a couple years ago. What's his Shane Stalcup.
Okay.
Used tubing in some phenomenal flies.
Yes, especially when I steelhead flies. Love the tubing. Yeah, segmentation wire. Yes, it's very easy to do, and it definitely stands out.
We don't use enough of. Do you know what telephone wire is? When I was a kid at camp, you make bracelets out of it. Purple, white dot, purple, or orange, blue / orange. We need to use those for tying nymphs. I'm going to find you some. They're outside the electrical phone box at 4 Mile Run. It's coated wire that's already colored. And the fact that nobody ties with this stuff is ridiculous.
Yeah, I one thing I do is I put, like, especially on something like Pat's rubber legs, I use the Solares or the Loon, and I see how, like, I just put a little head on there. Just a little something. They probably don't see it, but I like it.
Durability for the head of the fly, too.
Yeah.
It's bump into rocks.
Yeah.
It's like a helmet. All right, how much movement do you want? We know rubber legs, soft hackles.
Yeah, it depends on the fly. I think...
like Quasimodo. Great bluegill fly.
Oh, that's a good-looking bug.
Do you guys still sell that?
I don't think so.
Here's another filthy one, man.
But that'll do it.
Rucher's steelhead stone.
Yes.
My gosh.
These are good. Carp in the canal.
Really?
Yeah. Jeff Sylvan. This and the steelhead hammer, which is pretty much exactly the same fly, without the...
That's all good. I'll collect it some other time.
Without the Polish woven jam.
Never have done the woven nymphs.
I have. I've learned how to do it. It's fun. I don't know... It gives kind of that segmentation look to it. It's kind of a lot of time, a lot of energy.
All right, let's talk fishing these flies.
Yep.
Nymphing, rod length, and then let's go into action.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have a nymph rod you're going to go to? A lot of people like the 10-foot 3 weights now. I saw a beautiful one in your store the other day.
Yes.
Those new Recons have a nice reel seat on them.
Yes, those are nice. So... depends on the tactic. So for the average Joe, whatever you're fishing dry flies with, that's really you should probably be fishing your nymphs with most of the time, right? So if your fishery when you're fishing dries or dry dropper, if you're using a 9-foot 5 weight or 9-foot 4 weight or 7.5-foot 3 weight, because that's the kind of size of the fish and the environment around you. And
American Airlines.
And the trees, then that should be the rod that you nymph with, right? If you want to get into more quote-unquote tactical or, some of the higher stick European stuff, a longer rod. If I had one rod to fish for trout with, it would probably be a 9-foot 5 weight rod. I like a medium action stick. The 10-footers are amazing for the high stick.
Just the reach.
Yes.
Keep that line off the water.
Yeah. But they do become cumbersome when you're casting dry flies and trying to be really accurate. They don't do as well like if you want to switch to a streamer.
When you catch a big fish doing the bleach bucket method, there's not a whole lot of base to that rod.
There is not a whole lot of base to that rod. They're often extremely soft, which helps in the identifying the
bite
strike. Yeah, on those longer 10-footers and 11-footers. They have enough fighting power. They have more fighting power for sure than a regular 3-weight, 10-foot 3-weight does. But truth be told, man, most of the streams that I fish don't require anything longer than a 9-foot.
All right. What about your leader? Do you add to the butt or do you add to the tip to make them longer?
It depends on what I'm doing. Basically I have sort of 3 stages of nymphing. And
break that down.
Okay.
Do it.
So there's sort of 3 stages of nymphing for me. So it's usually first I start out with some sort of configuration. If I decide I want to throw a dry fly or a streamer, I will be able to very easily by just using tippet and not taking the leader off, switch that stuff out, right? So usually it's I look at the water and I say, okay, this is good dry fly or dry dropper water, right? But I could also use a suspension rig in here, right, if I want to. So I'll work it with the dry fly or the dry dropper. And, if I'm convinced, hey, there's a fish in here that I absolutely have to catch, then I will go to a suspension rig. And more recently, more often than not, that suspension rig has been the New Zealand strike indicator, which I find to be amazing, nothing short of amazing. So it's great, not even just for low, clear waters and a lot of the spring creeks that I've been fishing.
A lot of things we use are tasty. We got New Zealand lamb. We got pheasants.
Merino wool.
Rabbits.
Yeah.
Everything we tie these flies with are delicious. Now, this could be because I'm getting hungry. All right. So when you mean suspension, you mean below the surface at an exact depth, riding in the water column.
Yes. An indicator rig. It's floating. It's suspending the nymphs at some position above the bottom, right? Highly visual, very easy method to learn to use. Many people use, there's just 1,000 different strike indicators out there, and they all are all good, and they all have their purpose. I find the New Zealand indicator to be the most sensitive, the easiest to cast, and you would be amazed at how much weight one of those will hold up.
Versus just using like a Ozable wolf or a white wolf?
Yeah, so that would be my first choice.
Okay.
My first choice would be to, use the dry fly that I'm prospecting with, and hopefully it's big enough that I can suspend a nymph from it, but sometimes that's not enough.
All right.
Sometimes you can't get a fly down well enough and effectively enough with using a dry fly. The water might be too fast, the pool might be too deep, and you don't want to have a 12-foot nymph 12-foot of tippet dangling off your dry fly, right? So you switch to a suspension rig. For me, my first choice, depending on the water, is always that. Now it's that New Zealand, right? Little bit pricier, but I think it's money well spent. If I need to hold up a ton of weight, or if the water is just ripping and I got to make a pretty far cast, then I might go to the thingamabobber, the airlock. Biodegradable ones are great.
So the difference is you can travel to and from altitude with New Zealand because that hair doesn't expand and decrease in altitude. If you buy thingamabobbers in Colorado and fly home, they get crushed.
Really?
They show up like shriveled.
Wow.
I came home and I was like,
that is insane. I would have never guessed
dude,
that.
I could throw them all out.
Yes, and honestly, the New Zealand wool lands softer than your dry fly on the water. I love
delicate
that.
Little puff.
Yeah,
it's like cotton.
I love it.
Have you tied flies with that stuff yet? That'd make a good like carp cottonseed fly.
It would. Yes, it would.
Yeah.
And then if the water's really heavy and really fast, and I got to get down quick, like fishing a run coming out of a deep plunge pool on a small stream, or like a riffle that's got just sort of one of those cuts through the center of it. Faster water. If I can get an up and across presentation, the Euro rigs are absolutely deadly.
Right on.
Absolutely deadly.
How often do you fish still water for trout?
Never.
We got to find still water smallmouth around here.
I actually don't know that I have ever caught a trout in still water. Now, I think there's been like a couple of like stock ponds that I maybe have caught over the years. Yeah, there has been. But it's just something that's a hole in my game.
It's not around here where we live.
Yeah, I don't know anything about stillwater trout.
We got traffic and red tape, but we don't have stillwater trout. So you already mentioned currents. Inside of the seam, outside of the seam. Where are you going to throw? Foam?
Inside or outside of the seam? So that's a good question. I don't know. I work them both. Absolutely. Am I going to throw foam? Yes, I am regularly throwing.
Is foam home?
4 days ago, I was just decimating fish on small size 10 chubby Chernobyls that are kind of a mini double chubby that I tie. Oh, you're talking foam as it relates to the
foam in the water.
Foam is home.
Foam
yes.
is home.
Yes, foam is home.
While the flotsam congregates.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, that's where you should target. You should
Bubble
target.
lines.
When you look at the pool or the run or whatever, you should really be looking at, find whatever the slowest part of it is, right? And then find the water that is adjacent to that slow water, right? 1 mile per hour. 1 mile per hour is what you want. It's a slow walk. Waist high walking speed water. That's where fish live.
Steelhead. Same thing you said like 4 years ago, sitting right here.
Yeah, waist high walking speed water. That's where fish are. That's where they want to be.
They want to burn calories. They want to be fat, lethargic couch potatoes.
Yeah,
that's their goal in life.
Yeah, they're not fighting immense currents. They will. They'll get into certain places and whatnot. But I want structure. I want cover. I want walking speed.
How deep is too deep?
No such thing.
All right. What about mending? I get a lot of clients, striper fishing, shad fishing. They're their mending line. I'm like, you don't need to do that down here. It's irrelevant. You're actually going to screw up the swing.
Mending's critical in trout fishing with nymphs. Slack is absolutely your friend in nymphing and dry fly fishing. So whoever said slack is the enemy is nuts. Slack, you need tons of slack, lots of slack. That helps to get the flies down. It takes the tension takes the drag off the flies.
Nice slick line to dip and wiggle out.
Yes, dip and wiggle. Wiggle casts, stack mending. These are all tactics that I employ.
Explain a stack mend.
So a stack mend is once you present your fly, and I typically use a stack mend most commonly in nymph fishing with an indicator rig, but also in dry fly fishing as well. So basically you have an excess of line that is piled at your feet. You make your presentation, you have this excess of line piled at your feet, and basically what you're doing is you're tossing or slipping line out of the rod tip by wiggling it up and down, right? Never left and right. Left and right moves the fly, up and down just pumps it out. Or I actually throw it, right? So I pick a little bit of slack up with my rod tip, and then I shoot the line through my fingertips, kind of throwing it at the indicator. As it floats downstream, that'll not only extend your drift, but it'll keep the tension off the fly line and the indicator so that the flies can drift naturally and sort of get down deeper and deeper and deeper as the drift goes on. So basically, if you picture it, when I'm nymphing with a suspension rig or an indicator and I'm fishing up and across, and sometimes I'm not, sometimes I'm fishing just straight up, it's another story, but if I'm fishing up and across traditional style, medium-sized stream, what I'm envisioning I'm envisioning setting everything up for the last 20% of the drift, where all the strikes come. Most of the strikes come. 80% of the strikes come in the last 20% of the drift. So I'm making sure that I throw it upstream, I get that big initial mend as soon as the indicator hits the water. I even lift it up out of the water a little bit so there's a pause so that the flies can catch up to it. And then I'm putting some slack on the water almost every time intentionally so that I can keep the drag off of that indicator and off those flies to allow them to get down deep into the strike zone where they can marinate. And I'm setting it up, getting ready for that last 20% of the drift where I think the strike's going to come. Sometimes it happens earlier. The caveat is you got to make sure it's not too much slack that you can't set the hook if you get a strike before that 20% period of time.
Right, you don't want that lull in your line.
No.
What about high sticking? So producer Jason, the greatest high sticker I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Dude can sit there. If I tie a bow tie or change the light bulb, it takes too long, my arm go numb.
Yeah.
I can't high stick.
It's where the long rod helps, right? But you don't have to. The thing is you can get on most, especially like water that's built for sort of that high sticking technique or those Euro techniques is usually faster water, right? It's usually faster broken water that you can get a lot closer to the trout than you think you can. And so I'm not reaching my arm out, kind of like you see in the books and things, as much as you might think, right? If you have a 9 or a 10-foot rod, use that length of that rod to your advantage. You don't typically have to cast very far, and you can usually, in those situations, get closer to the trout than you think you can.
Nice. Final questions on nymphs. The method of fishing them. Let's talk about swinging.
Yeah.
Important for emergers and bugs coming up.
There are some streams, as you know, for many years I taught. I took groups to the West Branch of the Delaware River. Big groups.
I got a client who's got a house there. You just got to call them.
We would take 30, 40 people up there, and we'd take them on the West Branch of the Delaware, and we'd rent out the entire West Branch of the Delaware Resort there, or West Branch Angler Resort there, and we would do these clinics, these 3-day clinics, right? And that's kind of known as sort of one of the hardest trout streams, not only on the East Coast, but
in general,
just in general, right? And we would take these beginners there that have never caught a trout in their life, and look, so not everyone was extremely successful, but many of them were. And one of the secrets to why many of them were successful there was swinging nymphs, right? Because as picky and as difficult as those fish are, and as pressured as they are, there are a certain amount of those fish that just cannot resist a downstream swing with a couple of nymphs.
Is it the type of water that just allows for that?
I haven't found a correlation in why it works and why it doesn't work, but I have found that certain streams it does not work. The gunpowder, it works really well. The West Branch, the Delaware.
No interest in the gunpowder.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a tailwater thing, but it's not, because it doesn't work at all on the Savage. You can't swing anything in there. I don't know. Some streams, they're grabby and chasey on the little nymphs, and maybe they think it's little baby streamer. Maybe they think it's little bait fish, emerging nymphs.
Size 12 Prince nymph will catch more largemouth bass than other flies sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know what they think.
There's no stonefly swimming in those lakes.
No.
There's no. Yeah. They think it's a nymph, right? They think it's a damsel nymph.
What are we getting out on Burke, man? I got my new battery in the boat. That trolling motor is going to work now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, we got to go soon, man.
Yeah. All right. Bottom bouncing.
Yes.
When is bottom bouncing good?
For trout, and if we're talking about the traditional method of bottom bouncing, which to me is, red amnesia and paracord, only for steelhead.
Paracord? Oh, with the slinkies?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Salmon River jabronis.
Yes, that's like bottom bouncing to me.
Okay.
Are you thinking? Are we talking
like something
more,
just tumbling around, like split shot on it? Just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, sure. So kind of like Carolina rigging your nymphs, right? Or drop shot rig. Right?
Yeah.
So that can actually work really good at the head of a pool. Or the tail out of a pool at the head of the next riffle. That can absolutely work really good, especially with like a shaky one.
All right. When are you going to use a bobber?
Deadly. I'm going to use a bobber when you mean as like opposed to the wool?
No, indicator, I should say.
So especially if I'm casting upstream, if I have to cast multiple nymphs or a nymph and get down deep, and I got to cast it directly upstream, I really like the suspension rig in that regard, right? Because it's really hard for me, because you can't cast it very far, to do the tight line stuff upstream. I think it's a lot more difficult for me. Right. So I definitely like suspension rig there. Also, if I have to cast far.
Do you have a color preference for a bobber?
White, right? White, unless there's a ton of foam on the water or it's dark, then I'll use the chartreuse.
All right. Night fishing nymphs?
Yes. Best day of trout fishing I ever had was in Missoula, Montana at like midnight till 2 in the morning behind the Holiday Inn on Main Street.
They say the more bastards you find, the farther you get from Missoula, Montana.
Yes, they do say that.
Did you hear about the otter on the pass?
That was night fishing with these.
Behind the Holiday Inn hotel. That was the trip with the Orbis God Rendezvous, right?
Yes, and Hank Patterson was there, and
weirdest podcast ever.
Yeah, that's right. And so there was this beer distributor across from the hotel that we were staying at, and we decided to go out at midnight and fish. Fish the bridge on the Clark Fork there, and I think 4 of us probably caught 150 fish in 2 hours. It was just
that's 10 o'clock for you too.
Yeah, every single cast, Pat's rubber leg was gonna get eaten.
My goodness!
And it was a bunch of steelhead guys, so we could all stand right next to each other and drift our flies in unison,
right?
At 100 feet down the river, and just all hook up at the same time.
That's awesome.
Insane. Yeah.
Anything else on nymphs?
Anything else?
Do I need to make you a sandwich or anything before we go?
No.
Air fried tater tots?
No, I'm good. Wife's going to have dinner for me when I get home.
Pork belly?
Nope, had that last night. Samgyeopsal. Yeah, Korean style lettuce wraps with pork belly.
My neighbor, Rob, and I are going to do Traegered bulgogi steak and cheese.
Yeah, we had that. We had We didn't have bulgogi last night. We had
It's so easy to get, man.
something else.
Never buy the
non-marinated.
Yeah, never buy the pre-marinated bulgogi. It's just not the same.
No.
Dude, I love bulgogi tacos.
Oh, yeah.
So, Roy Choi, man.
Yeah.
All right, is that it for regular before we get into the randoms?
I think that's it. I think that's it for
Weirdest
regular.
nymph questions you ever received at the store? Someone come in for something that you never even heard of?
Weirdest
Bunny
nymph
bug.
questions. Oh, jeez.
Hey, man, can I put a nymph as my lead and a dry as my dropper?
No, maybe I have heard. Should I ever fish dry flies wet? Which you can. Yeah, there's tons of weird questions. The biggest question is how do I tell the difference between dry flies and nymphs, which is just impossible to answer. It starts with like, well, if it has a bead, it's definitely a nymph.
Buoyancy.
Yes, buoyancy.
All right, let's do this. Ready? What's a
okay.
product, fishing or non-fishing, that you will refuse to buy generic? And remember, my father-in-law thought generic was a brand. At Home Depot, I said, buy generic potting soil.
Oh, my God.
And he said, I don't see the word generic on any bags.
Fishing or non-fishing that I refuse.
Like NyQuil, man. Never buy generic NyQuil.
No? That's
I
terrible?
will not do that.
I know there's things. I just have to.
Cola.
I've gotta
I only
think
buy
about it.
Coke.
Yeah.
There's no RC. There's no Pepsi.
Yeah, we only buy Coke.
There's
We only buy
no,
Coke.
what's that, the Scottish one? Something brow?
No.
I don't know.
I don't know that. All right, come back to that one. I'll think of something.
All right, there's got to be some of the generic
That's a
you won't
good
buy,
one.
like
Yeah.
toilet paper.
The problem is I don't buy anything. My wife buys everything.
That's
So
awesome.
I
I spent 2 hours at the store today with a kid who wanted
Did
to buy
you?
everything. Lidl, dude, Lidl, I need to make you a Lidl hash brown.
Okay. Yeah.
Hold on, pause.
All right.
I'm going to put that in now. It's the greatest hash brown ever. Okay, Art now has 3 things he'll never buy generic.
Okay, so tires, right? Got to have good tires. Shoes and mattress, right? You spend 30 of your life in your mattress, a third of your life in your shoes, and I used to spend a third of my life, it seemed like, in the damn car.
You used to not have a bed. You slept on the floor.
Until I moved to Arlington. Yeah, when I first moved here, I slept on my
nice.
camping pad. Yeah, it was great.
When I lived out near Dulles Airport, I didn't have a bed for a while.
my
back was so good.
When I moved to Cleveland, I was like, all right, yeah, well, I'll just get a bed when I get there. That way I don't have to move it. I'll get a new bed. And then I just started like sleeping on the camping pad.
You don't have to feel about rolling over and falling off the bed.
Actually, the reason I didn't buy a bed until I got like married, was I had so much room. I had like roommates. Like I had this whole giant room, so I was like, yeah, screw this, man. I'm just sleeping on my inflatable thing here.
What's your favorite Halloween candy?
Ooh, favorite Halloween candy.
I know you're a sweet tooth guy.
Yeah. So the caramel creams, the little Gotes, I think is the brand. Caramel creams. It's kind of like a cowtail.
Right, with the white. You know what
the white stuff on the inside?
That's beef fat.
Really?
That's beef tallow.
No wonder I love
Sorry.
it so much.
That's pure beef fat. Bucket list nymph spot you want to fish.
Bucket list
besides like Slovenia.
Nymph spot?
Dude, I want to fish Slovenia so bad with nymphs.
Oh my god, New Zealand, I guess. Yeah, for sure.
Another
New Zealand.
Any
thing?
cheese questions since last time?
Yeah. So yeah, I could go on for days with the cheese questions. So let me ask you this, right?
Yes.
So if you've got like $20 in your pocket, right, and you're gonna get a cheese to put on a cracker, what's the one cheese that you would pick? What
$20?
You got $20
on a cracker, man.
Yeah, you're gonna put some cheese on a cracker because I love cheese and crackers. That's like my
anything
favorite.
you have with it. Eat, drink.
I mean, I'm open. I'm open for suggestions.
If you're gonna do like an IPA or beer, you want mustard seed cheddar.
Mustard seed cheddar.
Yeah.
So I got to go to Cheese Teak for that, right?
Yeah.
Giant's not going to have that.
I would go, man. You can't triple fat breeze like a Bellatois or a Saint Andre would be good in Shimiri, but if you find a Cotswolds cheddar with
They have
onions
that
in
at
it,
Whole Foods. They have that at Whole Foods. I've seen
Cotswolds cheddar onion, caramelized cheddar onion.
Buying
So
buying artisan cheeses is by far the most intimidating thing I've ever done in my life.
So good.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything by that creamery in Oregon that makes Midnight Moon and lamb chopper and that little fennel pollen and goat cheese.
So
hockey puck.
so my other question is I'm always driving by these like Amish places out in Pennsylvania and stuff when I'm fishing, and it says like unpasteurized milk and unpasteurized cheese for sale.
I would get the cheese. I don't know about the milk.
Is it safe? Yeah.
Yeah. Those cows don't have tuberculosis. That's the main thing you got to worry about is bovine tuberculosis.
And so I'm just taking your word for it, or what?
Read the mark. I Can Give You Milk by Kurlansky. Okay. Donkey milk is by far the preferred milk in the world.
Donkey milk cheese?
No,
so that's what I'm looking for?
Someone brought us camel milk cheese at the store once, and I was like,
really?
You
got to draw the line somewhere.
If it spits at you, I'm not eating it. Who are the best and worst looking people in fly fishing?
The best and worst looking people in fly fishing? Oh my god.
Dan Davala for both?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh my lord. I don't know, because here's the thing, like there's so many attractive women now in fly fishing, but I don't actually know that all of them are actually in fly fishing, right? So I got to substantiate that. I think most of them are, but there's definitely, and I've seen some of them like getting harassed via like, on their Instagram pages and stuff, like, oh, you're not actually fishing. So I don't know.
Art Noglak is the most handsome man in fishing.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Short hair now.
I don't have any. I actually have no interest in answering that question. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
What is your favorite form of caffeinated products?
Coffee. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
How do you take your coffee?
It depends on how good it is.
Okay.
So dude, I prefer to take my coffee black, but basically, like the worse the coffee is, the more stuff
you
gets
like
put into it.
You like your coffee like you like your bully buggers.
Yeah.
The wife, she grinds. Every night, she grinds by hand her coffee for the next day.
Oh, really?
She is obsessive.
Wow.
You do not mess with that woman during coffee time. On Saturday, no, that's... Yeah. She has the coffee machine next to the bed.
Yeah.
She's like, roll over. I'm like, they make them with timers.
Yes.
What's a good cure for waiter farts? Either preventing it or just dealing with smelly waiters?
Oh, man. Just dealing with it. You got to deal with it. For sure. You
Charcoal pills, man.
Charcoal pills.
I'll give you some.
Okay.
Gel caps, preferably.
Okay.
Activate charcoal. Your thoughts on litter bugs? Scum of the earth, man.
Yeah. I mean, littering is terrible, obviously.
Who raises somebody that does that crap?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think we need to bring back the stocks, right? And then we, and they go in the thing, and then we throw the litter at them, right?
If I was the boss and I caught you littering, you would get your water cut off for 3 months. You want to trash my water? See what it's like not to have my water.
That's good. That's fair.
All right.
5 for 9.
What's your favorite way to clean a rod cork? You have a hack for this, don't you?
Magic eraser. Greatest thing. It looks better than new. Not good as new. Better than new.
So I thought I'd go on eBay and order like 50 dozen magic erasers for $3. They just fall apart. You can get a great deal on them. The melamine sponge.
Well, actually, like the good name brand ones just fall apart too.
Have you ever tied a fly with one?
No.
I've been wanting to do that. We should figure something out.
Yeah.
All right. They make a good white egg. We could probably round it off.
Yes.
Worst nymph or the lousiest fish you refuse to fish?
The lousiest fish that I refuse to fish, and the
lousiest nymph. What's a nymph you're just like, psst, man?
A nymph.
That's for the rubes.
Psst, man.
That jabroni is fishing that nymph.
All right. So there's like a super overrated one, and it's definitely by far the green weenie. Like just the regular old commercial out of the thing green weenies are just terrible for me. I hate them. I just hate them. There's other ones that you can trick out, and then streamers. It's definitely the muddler minnow. Come on, guys.
Old school.
Hate the muddler.
Really, a weighted muddler?
Yeah, I never. Maybe those marabou ones. I like those marabou muddlers.
Kiwi muddler?
Yeah, but I'm not just the standard.
I have a kiwi muddler.
Standard issue muddler minnow.
Dude, kiwi muddlers.
I've never caught I've tried to catch fish on them. Can't catch any fish on it.
What are your thoughts on the solo stove now?
I really like that solo stove.
Pretty cool, dude.
We had it on the camping trip. Richard Bailey had it, and we cooked pork collars on it because he's got like a little grate that goes on top of his.
Oh yeah.
And so we actually seared the pork collars.
Once you get those coals going, there's no greater source of heat than those coals.
We have pork collars, heritage pigs from Moriarty Meats in Buffalo.
You know Moriarty is the nemesis of Sherlock Holmes.
That's right. That's right. But I love the solo stove, and that was actually amazing to see that you had the big one when I.
That's not the big one, man.
No, that's not.
Rob Martin got one that's like a swimming pool on his driveway. Dude.
Really?
You could fill that with water and bathe in it.
Yeah, and the thing that's amazing about it is like just one or two, basically what looks to be kindling, and that thing is freaking going.
And you don't stink. Hot. You don't have to worry about your clothes catching on fire. There's no like sparks.
I'm into it.
Yeah, dude. All right.
I'm definitely into it. Amazing piece of kit.
That one fish that got away when you were nymphing. Tell us about
it. It was 4 days ago. So the water was a little turbid. I was fishing a confluence pool of two.
Pennsylvania?
2 streams, yeah. And one was dumping some farm runoff into it for a few days after a rain period. And maybe it was a little more than 4 days ago. And water in the section that I know held big fish was definitely already a little turbid, a little bit of stain to it. Plus, the wind was blowing and the leaf litter was nasty.
Leaf hatch.
Oh, my God. So, shaky worm. Fatal mistake. And I made it. 5x fluoro to the shaky worm. It's going to break every time. It's going to break every time on a big fish. And I should have had 4x.
Do you think they're that leader shy?
No, I don't think they're that leader shy, especially when you're using a shaky worm. I could tie this to tow cable, and I think
goat rope, as Georgina would say.
Yeah, and I think they would completely ignore it to eat this thing. This fish was, 24 inches. It was it would have been my fish of the year. And if not, he was just shy, whatever. And I hit it, never had a chance. Grabbed it right in front of me. Boom! I didn't actually see the fish until he ate the fly, and he didn't even see it. Somehow the fish didn't see me. Actually, it was a big female. New Zealand rig, had the shaky worm. It was the only thing I felt like the fish could see at the time. Grabbed it and didn't even have a chance. Just zipped upstream into the riffle. Jumped. I couldn't drop the rod tip in time to get the slack, and bing. So I was really upset with that. So that would have been my big fish for the year. Hopefully, I'll still get it. I'm pretty confident that I will have some big fish photos by the end of
October.
Probably by the end of October, if we get some rain. The problem is like
it's dry, man.
It's just so dry. Like all my big fish spots are dry as a bone right now. If we get some rain, I should have a couple to show that'll probably be caught on nymphs at this point. Because I haven't nymphed really in a long time, I haven't really caught many big fish. There were a few. I think I caught one. That was like 20-ish, or maybe a little over 20 on the west branch of the Delaware, maybe last year or the year before that on a dry white wolf. I caught one on the South Holston that was, maybe 20 on a sulfur. But most of my fish have been under 20 for the last 3 years because I've been dry fly fishing.
All right, man. What are we going to talk about if we're going to talk about next subject?
If it's going to be nymphs, I think we should definitely get more into the tactics piece for sure. There's a lot to talk about with those suspension rigs, and I have some other rigs that I've designed that are kind of hybrid rigs where I use nail knot fly line onto leaders.
Don't give too much away.
Configure those and some stuff, and I think there's some good stuff to talk about as far as the specifics, more specifics on the techniques.
Where can listeners find you during the daytime hours?
I'm at Orvis in Arlington, Virginia. I'm on Instagram there. At TPFR or art.noglak@gmail.com if anyone ever wants to reach out directly.
How long before that restaurant across the street from you closes?
Colony View.
Yeah.
We've been talking about that for the last 6 months. For the last 6 months, we've been talking about that.
That is such a cursed spot.
Oh, I know. I've talked to, not the owners, but like the design team. They have a design team.
There's got to be like a pet cemetery under there or something.
Yeah, so I think they're out of Boston.
1950-something established.
Yeah, they're
Long
big up there. It's some kind of pizza.
My cousin just sold closed off his entire restaurant business of 12 restaurants in the city. I don't know who's opening restaurants right now. Man.
Tough business to be in right now.
All right, let's go look at some yarn.
Cool.
Thank you for joining us for the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. For more information or to contact Rob, please go to www.robsnowhite.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Freestone Productions at freestoneproductions.com.